Oh, the easier, better for construction podcast. I'm your host, Felipe Engineer Manriquez. This show is all about the business of construction. Hey, and we're live. Welcome everybody to this live stream. And if you're watching this on the replay, please do throw a like if you enjoy this type of content. James, Adam, and myself, we need that to be motivated to continue to answer your questions and comments after we're over. So super happy that you're all joining us today. And in case you didn't know, there is an EBFC Show podcast, and that show comes out every other Wednesday. As you can see, we're going to jump right in to introductions. We're going to go around the horn, starting to the right side of the cup. James, tell the good people who you are.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks, Felipe and Adam. Great to be here with you. My name is James Pease, and I'm a healthcare owner's representative with University of California, San Francisco, and I'm all about collaboratively delivering complex projects. IPD is my favorite thing to do, but I'm in a public agency right now, so we're pretty limited on how we can do it, but we are definitely going in that direction. I share my thoughts at website leanipd.com. So if you want to know all about IPD, go there and check it out. That's who I am.
Yeah, and do subscribe to the newsletter, because I have subscribed to James's newsletter and I get gems from him in my inbox. I love those gems that he shares with me. Like this last one, he shared some of his YouTube watching habits. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're not subscribed yet. So you need to get on that. Thank you, James, for putting out that great content on the regular. And then next up, to my right, Mr. Adam Hoots.
Hey, Felipe, I appreciate you having me. I am Adam Hoots. I'm with Construction Ache Solutions, lean construction coach, also the voice of the Lean Builder podcast. Hoots on the ground is what we're calling that, with no bullshito. So get ready for that, launching next week. I started my career as a plumber, and I've had about every seat from a builder's perspective, all the way, to project director, project executive, operations, innovation, that sort of thing. And so I'm super excited to be here to learn from James today. I love the YouTube site. I'm not subscribed to the newsletter yet, but I will certainly do that as soon as we're finished here. But I'll tell you, your IPD series is fantastic out there on YouTube. Lean IPD is the name of the channel, and would highly recommend that. Again, just understanding the basics and what IPD can do for our projects. And so I've really enjoyed watching that. I'm looking forward to learning from you here, James, as well. And, every show with Felipe is a great time. So I just appreciate you allowing me to crash the party and learn a little with you.
Man, we love having you on, Adam. And congratulations on getting up there, being the show host for the Lean Builder. That's an awesome accomplishment. And you know that I'm going to be subscribed to that, and I'll be watching that every show that comes out. So, ladies and gentlemen, while I do my introduction, we want to hear, where are you watching from today? And even if you're watching this on the replay, tell us in the chat. Like to always know where the good people of the EBFC show are watching from, because we love that. So tell us where you're watching from. And I am Felipe Engineer Manriquez, the host of the Easier, Better for Construction podcast. And you can see that that's there on the regular every other week. I'm also responsible for the National Lean Program at McCarthy Building Companies as the National Lean Construction Director, where I get to play with target value delivery on the daily on projects across the country. Also, I am a registered Scrum trainer. Thank you, Agile Education Program, powered by Scrum Inc., for that honor. It is one of my most favorite things to do, as Adam knows. Lean construction and Scrum, it's just amazing. So we want to get a sense, even before we get started, there is the agenda right there under the EBFC Show Cup. We're going to do our introductions. That's done. Let's knock that off. And then we're going to go right into James telling us a little bit more about TVD. But even before we do that, and we've got plenty of comments, let's see where people are coming in from. While I give the shout outs to the good people listening live, on a scale of 1 to 5 in the chat, just tell us how much TVD experience you have. 1 is none, 3 is in the middle of the road, and 5 is very experienced. I'm very experienced. James is very experienced. I'm also a Lean Construction Institute approved instructor for target value delivery, which is this book right here, right there. You like that, James? Little camera effect right there, this book. And then let's see where people are calling in from. So we've got all the way from Sweden. What's up, Amber? Man, look at that. And he's a fan of James. That's beautiful. We've got Nala in the house, and we'll make an announcement too, Jeremy. Don't you worry. I got you covered. We've got a New Orleans announcement to make at the end of this. We've got, oh my God, my cousin all the way from Texas. What's up, Ruben? And then we've got Jeffrey in from San Francisco. Jeff, man, I haven't seen you since 3-4 months ago now. It's good to see you again. Norway, South Carolina, Alistair, our buddy, a LinkedIn user from Edmonton, Alberta, that it could be Kirby Coates, but it might not be, Adam, because
I don't think she gets up there.
He's not in Alberta, so that's all good. And then we've got Tom himself, the chair of the Lean Construction Institute, New Orleans, 2022, Mr. Tom Weathers. Beautiful. Oh, my good friend, Richard in St. Louis, representing the Lean Construction Community of Practice there. And Matt, also from St. Louis. Beautiful. Silicon Valley. Hello, Terry. It's good to have you here. We got Phoenix. We've got Orange County. Oh, RJ. We've got Morocco. Man, look at that. We've got Lakewood, New Jersey in the house. Cincinnati, Ohio. Mr. Dave McNeil. Oh, Alexandria, Virginia. Correct me, Adam, if I mess up any of those states on the beautiful northeastern United States, you just slap me down.
I got you on the East Coast. No problem.
We got Avondale. Oh, Enrique, what's up? Look, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to look at that face. Could he be my cousin? I usually get confused for him so many times. And then I don't even know where this is, but that looks like it's somewhere digital. NYC in the house. And here we go. We've got, now we're going to get into where people's experience levels are. So we've got a 4, so that's a little more experience. And we've got Atlanta, Georgia. We've got a 2, a 1, some 2s, 3s, some 4s, some 1s, a lot of 1s. Oh, we've got some 3s. We got some more 1s. Connecticut's in the house. Some more Orange County. We got some 1s, 3 and 3.5. He's being so generous to himself. We got Dwan with not telling us where he's at. I would put Dwan at like a 5.7. Then we've got San Francisco. Dave loves the accuracy of some of the. I think he loves Dave. Raphael loves Dave's 3.5, like just being dead on. We got my buddy Tim from Sacramento. Tim, I'd put Tim at a 5. He's working for a client that is also like in James' situation, bringing it in. We've got Houston, Ireland in. Oh, my friend Derek. And Enrique says, yeah, we are family. We're cousins.
He's actually claiming you, huh?
Yeah,
oh my
he's claiming me. We got Navi in from all the way from Norway in Oslo. Beautiful Norway. I will put Navi at least a 3, if not more. So with that, James, I think now that we got a flavor, we've got to talk to everybody in here. So, James, what is target value design?
I like it. So I'm going to share my experiences as an owner. I wouldn't put myself at a 5. I'd say 3.5, 4, 3.1415, 926. So target value design is a concept of trying to stay on budget as an owner. I'm going to use my own words instead of the textbook definitions. So here's my experience in construction. I got started. I didn't really study construction. And when I got involved, the way you do projects, the way I was taught to do projects is you hire a design team, right? You tell them what they want and they go away and they design something for 6 or 9 months. And then maybe if you're really sophisticated, you get budget updates at like some milestones, like 50% design development, 50% construction documents, which I would challenge you, by the way, to find a definition of 50% design development. It does not exist. Actually, I have a definition. You know what 50% design development is?
What?
This definition is right every time.
conceptual?
Nope. It's whatever you print the day 50% DDs are due.
And I've got some laughter on track for that. Absolutely.
Overused. Okay, so that's the way I learned how to do things. You do a complete design and then you put it out to bid. And maybe you get an architect or a designer's estimate, or you get a third-party cost estimator. You put it out to bid. Nobody other than me has had this before, but you put it out to bid and it comes in higher than it was supposed to. And then you go back. Yeah, I know. Shocking. Comes back higher than you look at your budget. And it's like, I don't have enough money to deliver this job. You go back and you say, okay, this is too much. You get a list from the design team or the construction team, usually, of here's all the value engineering options, right? Which sarcastically is, here's all the things you can cut out of the job to make it cost less. So you're not going to get the same job, but maybe we can get closer to your budget.
So I got some numbers for you, James. So like your budget, let's let that dollar represent your budget value in any increment. Multiply your budget times 1. It's going to be that same budget. You put it out at that, you think at that 50% mark, and it comes over like what, 10% over? There's at least 10, maybe 20% over. What's more typical? What are you used to?
Right now we're seeing things come like 30% over with the supply chain and everything. But yeah, I mean, 10%, 15%, it depends.
Oh, I got 30% over. There you go.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, keep going.
So here's the way this works. So then the team says, okay, you can take out 25% of things and we'll give you the nickel back. Yep, there you go. No, leave the quarter. You just get the nickel back. You take out 25%, 25 cents, but you only get a nickel back. So that you're in this downward cycle. You never get all the money back is what I'm trying to say.
No.
And it takes time. You spend more money on redesign. You take a couple of months. The budget gets updated, and it's not quite there. And then you do it again. Somewhere in that time, we go back to leadership and we tell them, we can't do the job for what we got approved, so we need more money. And we end up losing months doing that, and we generally never get to the budget that we were trying to get to. Now, a lot of times I would say some projects are over budget and some projects are just plain underfunded. So think about that. What that means is oftentimes we start out with a project that as the owner, we really can't afford to build it, but we're getting bad information that we could actually afford what we want. It's like, I want a Porsche, but I only have $20,000 to spend. But nobody tells me that up front. So I go and I do all this shopping. It's like, I was never going to get there. It was never going to happen. So target value design, that was a long intro, is about integrating the estimating process iteratively with design and actually using the budget that you have to spend as an input to design so that as the designer is working, they're getting constant feedback about what things cost. And what I push for is I try to tell the design team, don't design anything until you've confirmed it is in the budget, which is very different than the way most of us work is we design it and draw it, and then we add it all up and figure out how much it costs. It's a completely different mindset to say, this is how much money I have. We can break it down into components of what we can afford to spend by system or by cluster or pit, however you want to break up the money, and then feed that back to the design team to give them strict guidance about what they have to design to. I still find you do those kind of 50% DD. There are times where you got to catch all the drawings up and then do it kind of a separate takeoff to make sure you're tracking. And I call that the leap of faith. You've got all of the usually in target value design, every decision has kind of a cost associated with it, plus or minus, and you could have hundreds and hundreds of questions that are getting answered that make the cost of the job go up or down. And at some point, all those things get drafted into documents, and then the team has to go back through all the documents and make sure, like, that what we think it was going to cost is what's reflected in the drawings. There's also a piece where especially early when not a lot is documented, where the estimating team has to do more conceptual estimating than takeoffs. So they have to talk about different building systems, whether you're going to use concrete or steel, whether you're going to use a moment frame or a brace frame. And they have to talk conceptually about how much those decisions cost, which one is more expensive than the other. Is it 10% more expensive or 50% more expensive? Because you don't have time to design all three systems, estimate them, and figure it out. So let me pause there for a second. That's a lot of words.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's really good. And a lot of the stuff that James is talking about, ladies and gentlemen, whoop, there's a little camera faux pas right there. A lot of what James is talking about is right there in that book, Target Value Delivery, published by the Lean Construction Institute some years ago. It's still got a lot of good nuggets. And the only thing I'd add on to that, James, now that I got so excited and just blasted my phone off, the only thing I'd add to that is, like, if you think of Target Value Delivery as a framework, as a scaffolding that you can assemble and create your project within, you can use it despite any contract you have. However, you need somebody like a James owner side that wants to drive that. So if you're out there in the live stream land, like Basil, who's also a fan of myself and James, thank you, Basil. Or if you're out there in the supply chain, like our good friend Jake, who's wondering if that's Adam, and it actually is Adam, you've got to understand that the owner is going to play a heavier hand in Target Value Delivery. And some architects don't even recognize the delivery. They still remember when this concept first came out, it was Target Value Design, which was borrowed from lean manufacturing, but it's been used in construction for decades now. So I think that was just good. Like, you've got to have an owner like James. So James, as an owner, just off the cuff, like, why would you want to use Target Value Delivery? Your contract isn't forcing you to.
Well, for me, it's called job preservation. I selfishly don't want to get fired. So you can only go over budget so many times and go back to the well for funding so many times. And so the worst case scenario, especially in the healthcare project, is you put a budget together, say a job, you think it's going to be $100 million. You've got a business plan that, or let's say your dollar, you've got your project and it's got a business plan. It makes sense at $1. And the team's telling you can do it for $1. You've got your business plan. And then you finish the job at $1.20. And let's get the nuts. So that's what it costs to build it. Well, at $1.20, it doesn't have an ROI. It actually loses money. So if you knew it was going to cost $1.20 when you started, you might not have built the job in the first place. But now you've built it and you got to run it for the next 30 to 50 years at a loss. So I said, like, that's how you get in trouble. Right. And then you magnify that. My team, we have 130 active projects right now. We have 45 projects in construction. If we deliver 45 projects like this that end up with a net negative return, that's how you get in big trouble. So I don't think you can truly do target value design without a good validation or a good, basis of design, conceptual framework at the beginning of what you need to accomplish. And there's a lot of work out there on what validation is, but I'd suggest the goal was to find out as quickly as possible, get the design and construction team on board, get them talking about how much things cost in the market. I see a lot of questions about when you document things. In the beginning, it's having just a real honest conversation about where the market is, what things cost, to figure out, is this a $1.20 job? Is it a $1 job? Is it $1.10? Is it somewhere between $1.10 and $1.20? But if we work really hard, we can keep it closer to $1.10. Or, there's no way you're getting it for under $1.20. You may, and I've had projects where we got the whole team together and we found out we couldn't actually afford to deliver the job at a price point we needed to deliver it at. And we didn't do the job. We spent, I don't know, $400,000 for a new medical office building. We scoped everything out. And basically the team was like, we can't get to your target. And so the job didn't go forward. Other times, like you said about the owner has to roll up their sleeves and make hard decisions. Target Valley Design is not about the design and construction team doing a bunch of stuff to give the owner exactly what they want for less money. Target Valley Design is about making all design decisions extremely transparent about what their cost impact is to the job. And then you can add, if you want, you can add life cycle cost or sustainability, but you add the factors and you make it transparent, and then the owner has to step up and make choices. Sometimes those choices are hard. A lot of times those choices are hard. But I would say the biggest thing is about making it transparent. Let me look through some of these questions. I'll pass it to you, Felipe, and read some
I'm going to
questions.
pop up some questions too, James, in just a second. But another thing that James said, that if you've never done this before, we got a lot of people that are brand new to this. A lot of times the client will do that business case validation, and then design and construction. Like Adam, you've been a part of a bunch of projects. Have you ever heard a client talk about the business case?
I have, but not a lot. I'll tell you
Rarely.
that. Very rarely.
Very rarely. So that's very common outside of projects that are using integrated project delivery or even IPD Light or using collaborative contracts. It's rare to get that kind of information from the client. So let's go back to our budget here for a second. So we've got our business case goes through, and we're still in COVID. It's 2022 already. Wow. Thank you, James, for being part of the first live stream, and Adam for 2022. We're still in the pandemic. So we've got this thing called escalation that our friend Jake knows something about. But we've got this high escalation in the market. So maybe we come back from the business case and it comes back that we thought the project was going to be $1, but it's really $1.20. We're carrying 20% for escalation. Even if we put escalation to the side, which is a smart thing to do from an owner's perspective, just get it out there and segregate escalation to the side. Now, James talked about setting that target. Setting that target means I've got $1 that makes my business case work, but the client is going to take out some money and say, here, can we do it for 80% of my budget? And they create this gap right away. It's not a real gap. It's just self-created by the client. It creates a challenge condition. So now if the business case pans out at $1, from an owner's perspective, it'll be even better if we can do it for 80% of that cost. So the client sets a target below the allowable cost, and the team has to innovate to get to still meeting the needs, the function, the form, the fit, the beauty, everything that it has to do for that building. In this case, in James's case, it's a hospital or a medical office building or something in the healthcare industry. And so setting it, that's 80 cents right there. If you can't see, that's a nickel, just in case, for those that don't know American coinage, it's a nickel. So that 80 cents, we've got escalation on the side. We just pull it out on the side. So maybe the cost is still $1 when you add it all together, but we're just dealing with escalation separately because all business cases have to be adjusted for, the supply chain issues that we're still facing today. And then the team works, like James said, can they innovate and get to closer to 80%? Or are they going to go back towards, the full $1, depending on how the design, the function, the requirements come out? So I'm just going to put that back there. Just some food for thought. Let's go to a question. James, what question should I bring up? We've got a lot of questions coming up. Should I just start at the first question from Carlo?
Yeah, let's just start in the beginning.
So Carlo, there's the question there for you, James. Who's gathering all of this submittal information?
Yeah, I think it's also not who's gathering it, but when you document it. And so what I encourage people to do is to document what needs to be documented for the team to have price certainty. So a lot of times there's standard things that we do in each phase of design. And an example is in target value design or delivery, I've seen a very effective way of looking at your casework costs as taking a floor plan and highlighting in one color all of the stuff that's supposed to be built-in casework, all of the stuff that's supposed to be modular, and all of the stuff that is supposed to be like a furniture item, right? 3 separate buckets. Furniture is usually in mine. Modular casework could be in or out, and then millwork or casework is almost always in the construction budget. It doesn't need to be documented much more than that. You can come up with a linear cost, a cost per linear foot for each type, and that can be enough documentation super early in the design phase. So I think we have a tendency as an industry to over document and over detail things that don't help in providing price certainty. What you need to know for casework, you need to know a little bit about quality, and you need to know what the countertops are. The material, you don't need to detail it out. And so same for flooring. Some of the best TVD documents I've seen are a floor plan highlighted. These areas are resilient flooring. These areas are tile. These areas are carpet. There's maybe, a 10% fluctuation in carpet, but there's a much bigger fluctuation between tile and carpet. So you need to get those ones right, how much of each you have. You could even be flexible later in design if you say I have a certain square footage of each type of material, and then you can play around with where you place it. So all of that's to say, the only way I can say it simply is to think about what you need to lock in price certainty. If you don't need it documented to lock in price certainty, then don't do it. It's a last responsible moment kind of a thing. So that's the way I can say it in a single sentence. Now, because there's thousands of scenarios where I might have an answer, but that's the framework I use. Is I would ask the contractor, I'd ask the flooring contractor, the mechanical contractor, is this important to you to be confident about your number? Yes or no? Yes, it is. Okay, let's document it. Is it not? No, then let's not document it. Let's wait. And I would say it's harder to not document, that we're used to just running away and putting everything on paper. Try not to do that.
Yeah. And then we've got, in the book, there's some examples. Let me just throw that back. In the LCI's Target Value Delivery book, there's some examples of what type of things get documented and how. And some of the things are very low tech. Like if you look behind Adam, this is a perfect example. He's got a dry erase board behind him. It's very common that teams will use like a big room, for example, and they'll just document things in the room that they're in. They might take a picture. It might get into an A3. So there, you could get more sophisticated. You might use a technology like Join, where you've got a collaborative cost modeling information that people can share with each other.
Actually, pictures is what I've been pushing people to for target. If I've built, say, 4 clinics and I have an exam room that I generally like, and I hire a team to come and validate what my next clinic is going to look like, they're going to jump right into elevations, floor plans, equipment plans. I'm saying, like, we don't need all of that. I need a room typical that shows what's in it. And can I take some pictures to show you the level of quality that I'm expecting?
That's beautiful. Yeah. That same token of appreciation. Thank you, Khalid, for appreciating that we're sharing our experiences here with all of you. And we love the questions. Keep the questions coming. We do have some more questions, and then we're going to go into our next area. So then we've got,
Felipe, I got a quick question for you. We're talking a lot about cost and finances and budgets and estimating and that sort of thing. Is that where we draw the line with target value delivery, or other things being considered as well from a, life of the building, maintenance? I mean, how do we look at that from a non-budgetary perspective?
Oh, that's a great question, Adam. So yeah, in the design and construction phase, so we've got, James talked about that business case validation early, and then we go in through the TVD process where we're getting the design to a place where we can build it for that business case value. Then we transition to the shovel, post shovel. The construction team uses a bunch of things like last planner system production controls or pool planning. We could definitely use TACT. We can use TACT, Adam, to do
Absolutely.
TVD. We can use Scrum and
I'm
other.
a huge TACT fan. I
Look at
think
that.
that's the way of the future. Just
And-
throw that out there.
Just throwing it out there. So we got another tack fan in the house, Adam. And we get to the end, we've got to turn over the building. So the client, the whole reason we doing this whole song and dance is so they can generate revenue or solve problems themselves. So we've got that post occupancy phase, which to the client's perspective, it's the whole reason why they're shopping for construction anyway, because they need to solve business problems, and a building or a structure or, a central utility plant is solving those problems for them. So that is the major focus. At the end of the book, there's a short little chapter in here. It's like a page about post occupancy and some of those things that happen, but you can definitely pull in. So James, I think from your perspective, now that we kind of showed the big phases, what happens at the end of a TVD project?
Well, so on the sustainability or life cycle cost, ideally, all of those things those are all part of the business case. I mean, the business case has, for a medical facility, number of exam rooms, number of patient rooms, number of operating rooms, that translates into a certain amount of volume, a certain amount of revenue. But then there's a quality component to it. There's long-term operating costs. So if you build your model transparently, those goals around sustainability, I mean, LEED is an easy measure. It's not the end of sustainability. But I'm working on a project now. We're talking about, okay, is it going to be all electric? Are we going to shoot for carbon neutral? What level of LEED are we going to go for? We have a target, but we don't know that we're going to be able to hit it because we're so early in design. There's so many decisions around systems that need to be made. I would be clear from an owner's point of view, those decisions always have cost as a component of them because I have a finite amount of resources. And so the discussion I'm having with this team is they're saying, well, don't you want carbon neutral building? Yes, I do. But with my limited resource, I have to make a decision about, do I build the facility or do I not build the facility at all? And what is the trade-off of, I can't be perfect, but I can take care of people. I can save a lot of lives. I can make it significantly better than a building I built 5 years or 10 years ago. I can incorporate as much innovation as is available, but I don't have an unlimited budget. And there are some clients out there that are in different businesses with different types of margins. Tech companies that I would say they have much closer to unlimited budgets. You can see some of the things that they're putting out there. And part of that is about their mission and their brand, right? So there's another payoff to it, like you're saying, Adam, that's not purely dollars and cents. But I like the phrase, no margin, no mission. So you have to make smart decisions with your capital over time, or you won't be around. It'll be left to somebody else to make those decisions.
It's a good catchphrase. And speaking of estimating and margin, we've got a question in from Terry. It's an easy one. Are you factoring in code and AHJ requirements into estimating? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, I would say that the first thing that gets documented in projects that I'm working on, especially if it's a new building, what's the code cycle? What's the building type? What are the occupancies in the building? What's our fire alarm strategy? What's our fire sprinkler strategy? What's our seismic factor? So yeah, that gets baked in. I mean, the number one thing to do if you want it estimated well before you've documented much is to hire companies in your market that build that type of product. And then make it very clear to them that you want to know what it's going to cost when the building is done based on their experience, not based on what's documented to date, right? They need to fill in the gaps of all of those things. And a good conceptual estimator that's open and transparent can do that. You need to find out as the owner or on the project team, if you have an estimator that's just purely taking stuff off of the plans and they're going to point back later and say, well, meeting the code wasn't in the drawing, so I didn't assume that I had to meet the code. I've had those conversations lots of times. So
Beautiful.
Now I just try to gut check, like, is this person on our team? Are they thinking about the end game, or are they just, doing a CYA about what's in what pages of the documents at this point in time? Long way to say, yes, you do think about code.
Yeah, we do. And well, I'll get the next question up. I just want to give a shout out to Mateo, who's reading the Construction Scrum book. Thank you, Mateo, for reading the book from Boxy Construction. Love it that we got people in there. So yeah, you can definitely incorporate it into everything. We use it for everything. It's all Scrum. This whole live stream was Scrummed. And there you go. There's James's Scrum there on the side. That little sticky note that's showing there's a Scrum board where that came from. We scrummed the whole agenda. So yeah, you can use it for all kinds of things. Here's another question from Nancy. And her question is this, and I'm sure a lot of people watching have the same question. So thank you, Nancy, for this one. James, how is this not just design build done right?
Well, okay, so I've never done design build right. So so what I would say is that design build done right, at the end of the day, what I think of design build is a contractual relationship where a contractor, generally the contractor, signs a contract with the owner to deliver a set program and basically to guarantee the cost of that. And they have, as a sub-consultant to them, an architect. And so what I would say is probably different, although I'm making some assumptions, is that in most cases, the design builder is running the target value design process and making decisions that make sense to them based on whatever they've agreed to contractually with the owner. Where target value design, before the contract is set, the owner and the designer and the builder on equal footing with a very transparent target, making decisions on trade-offs to try to get to the budget. So I would say the design build piece is, at some point in design build done right, the owner transfers responsibility of the cost of the job over to the design builder. And then the design builder makes the majority of the decisions from there based on whatever scope is included in the contract. So did I get that right?
Yeah, we said this in the beginning, where if you're going to do target value delivery, TVD, the client is going to play a much heavier role throughout the entire process. They're not going to walk away. They're way more engaged in the decision making. And like James said, the transparency is at another level in design. If I walk into a typical design build projects trailer or construction project or co-location or office where they have meetings, I'm not going to see a lot of the things that you would see and associate with target value delivery, like cost transparency. That might be a select few people on the team, even in just off the shelf IPD that doesn't use the framework and the tactics here that we're talking about. You're going to have way more collaboration, and the client is going to be much more actively involved. I can't stress enough that the client plays such a heavier role in this. Adam, it says, like, go ahead, James.
I was going to say, to give you an idea, regardless of contract model, although in IPD where it's more transparent and shared cost among all the designers and builders, when we're running target value design, we have a target. We typically break that target down into chunks, which could be called, they get managed by either clusters or project implementation teams, depending on your contract. I think design build done right, you'd do the same thing. You'd break $100 million job down into, we got 25 million for MEP systems, we got 25 million for systems, we got 20 million for core and shell, and we got the rest for miscellaneous scopes. So you break it up into pieces. You give each of those groups their own target, and they're working to that. We'll set those targets and the overall target of the team. We'll put it on a trend line showing here's where we're at, here's where the target is, and then the tracking. And we'll put that on a huge poster when you first walk into the trailer. The first, you got the reception desk, and right above the desk, you will have the current status of the team's work towards the target, and broken out by cluster where each group is at and what their target is and how they're doing. And then some of the better ones I've seen are, and by cluster, what the major decisions that need to be made at that moment are and what they're worth. So
beautiful. I think that segues in perfectly to David's question about costing, price tagging, real value, benefits, and decision making. Just a lot of stuff wrapped in on this comment here from David. But that decision making that like James is talking about, in especially in projects they're implementing lean at a higher level, you're going to use something like A3 problem solving. You're going to also use choosing by advantages. So you can take very complex decisions and evaluate the differences among the alternatives. And that's all going to be done with high transparency. It's very common in a TVD project to see these A3s that people are working on right on the wall. Like you walk in, right, you're going to see that trend line like he talked about for the target cost going down, that initial cost that David's asking James about versus the real cost, like where we're trending. And then you'll see decision points and A3s to just to the right, to the left, above, below it, showing people like, how do we get to here? Like if we're trending down, like if we're at a 5% decreasing trend towards our target, you might see some A3s that were completed that said like, if we use concrete in this environment, in this locale now versus steel, where steel today is going up 5x in some geographies, whereas concrete is having lesser, there might be your challenge. If it's not a tech job, like James said, like if it's a hospital job with long capital planning, you might be challenged to make a decision to go to a concrete structure because you just don't have the cost to make your business case work. So we might see an A3 doing that analysis and showing how did we reduce the budget by that $10 million going in this direction as an example.
Yeah, right before I answer this question, I sit on a owners group facilitated by the Lean Construction Institute, and there's members, healthcare and others from all over the country. So we're comparing notes on who's seeing escalation where, and what we found is that the companies that hard bid their jobs are the ones that are experiencing the majority of the escalation. The companies that have long-term partnerships and open book type contracts are not seeing nearly as much escalation. And one of the primary reasons is things like steel. If you've already got your steel company on board, there's tons of things you can do to control what you pay for steel. You can place a mill order, you can do futures, you can lock in pieces of it, you can get lumped in part of a bigger order. So when you have a partnership and transparency with your trade partners, you're not at the whim of these costs going up and down. Another example, a hospital in San Francisco in my previous life, $1 billion construction project. They're worried about the price of copper. When you actually dove down super deep into the numbers, there was about $20 million worth of physical copper that the job was going to buy. So how much could copper really go up? And you can control when you lock those things in. So it's really only when you're hard bidding and you're taking a completed design and just throwing it out to the market and seeing what the market tells you back. And I can tell you, if you're on a hill in the middle of a big city with the most expensive cost per square foot, or the top 5 most expensive cost per square foot in the country, like you're going to feel every single bit of escalation risk that anyone's feeling, especially when it's a lump sum contract and they can't get relief for it. So your experience of escalation and lots of things, I promise you, is a lot based on how you're engaging with your partners. And you may not realize that unless you try other things.
I love that. And that question perfectly answered, why would an owner want to do it? So I think we got that question just completely done. Anything left on that, Adam, from your perspective? Why would owners want to do TVD versus not?
But what I'm hearing, one is definitely stay in budget. Two, I love James's comment of the dollars and cents being an input into the design in lieu of an output, which is the normal process. But I keep hearing it's so important for the owner to stay involved, right? We're targeting the value from an owner's perspective, and when we do design build jobs and things like that, we're now receiving value from somebody else's perspective, be it an architect, engineer, contractor, and not the owner so much. And as you stated, Felipe, that's why we're here, right? We're here to serve the owner and their business case. So loving it.
Yeah, we did. And even from Jake, who's not technically in construction directly, it's just from his perspective on the outside, being in the supply chain, it's so fascinating to see how construction actually operates. And it is different. So it's look at that, other industries. Look at how we do things. You're getting an inside behind the current look, and also appreciate James's sense of humor and his humility. He got that mentioned. So I just want to give him a shout out. So beautiful. He's blushing for real. So we've got another. I want to go to the questions we have, and then we're going to come back. I want to just hit on the results for just a second, James, because if there's some potential clients out there, or there's some architects, engineers who often have the ear of the client even before the general contractor, what kind of results are people getting, James? Like, what have you experienced yourself when you're using TVD, and even if it's not called out in the contract?
So let me first say, I want to go back to your example with the 4 quarters.
Yeah.
And you said, so you think the job is going to be $1. You've got 4 quarters, and that the owner will set a target of, 85 or 90. So I would first of all suggest to owners and teams that is not actually the goal. If you can do the job for $1 and it has an ROI that makes sense to your organization to do that, therefore it's a good investment. You should spend $1 and you like the investment. I think owners should be focused on make sure you do it for $1. And if it's a good investment, you can do that all day long, as many of those as you can find. I think a lot of times we get too caught up in like, it's a great investment at $1. I'm going to try to do it for 90 cents. And I end up doing it for $1.20 over and over and over. And even if it doesn't necessarily cost less, the biggest thing I'm dealing with in our public process with bidding is I think we lose at least 6 months bidding a job and then starting the submittal process and the coordination process after we bid than you do if you do design build or IPD or CM at risk with early trade partner involvement. Like, the number one thing is like, get all your submittals and stuff and your coordination done before you get a building permit, and just build what you permitted, right? If you can get a coordinated model and permit that and fabricate from it, you've got a much better chance of doing the job for what you said you were going to do it for. So the point to owners, I've got stories where we save $20-30 million. I do, but that's not the point. The point is, if it makes sense at $1, what is your experience in delivering your jobs for $1? And if you're not consistently delivering jobs for what makes sense to you to deliver jobs for, then I would consider one, target value design. So I walked into a job the other day. It's down in the basement of a hospital, very complicated multi-phase job. I could tell within 30 seconds looking at the drawings that there was no way we could afford it within our budget. I asked the team, so what is your target budget for this job? And they said, well, what do you mean? We don't have one. He says, okay, so we never told you, we make this mistake. We never told you how much money we had to spend. No, you didn't. We just sat down with the users and they started telling us, well, we want this fixed and we want that fixed. And it'd be great if we could have this. And, we were going down this path and we were like done with design development. It's not like we were in a conceptual phase of studying options. We had invested a significant amount of money designing something that we can't afford to build. Now, we had a very good leader. We went back and said, okay, here's the issue. It's either going to be probably twice. And I didn't know exactly. I didn't take it off. I said, from a square footage point of view, it's probably twice what we have budgeted. You want to go back and get that money, or do you want to get the scope back down to what we have? And in our environment, it's get the scope back down to what we have. And so go back to the team. So now we've onboarded a construction partner and we've said, we need you to get through, figure all this stuff out. And the construction partner is now asking, well, how do I give you a number if I haven't bid it yet? Right? It's a good question. Happens, but there is a way. It happens all the time. Companies are able to do it. So that's our next set of conversations about, and what I'll say is, okay, well, what are you nervous about? What can you not take off? What needs to be documented for you to be comfortable with your numbers? Let's answer all of those questions, and then you can get confidence around your number without having to bid it. Oh, but I can't estimate this without this trade partner. Okay, let's find a way to get them on board, and then we can engage them in what this is going to cost. So TVD more than anything is about changing the conversation.
Perfect. That's perfect segue to Q&A. So now we're going to go all the way into Q&A. We got our first question in from overseas. Amber is asking, or he's saying that it makes perfect sense. I agree. It makes perfect sense. And I've seen teams in North America use target value delivery even when the contract doesn't have it. So again, you do got to ask questions like James said. If you're a contractor, you can just ask, what is the target cost? What is the target budget we're trying to achieve? And just ask it. And then when you, the follow-up question is going to be, what's in that number and what's not, right? Is the owner carrying escalation? You might find out that you and the owner doubled up on escalation. If you don't ask, you're not going to know. And that could be the difference between a project that gets greenlit and goes and not canceled, or gets canceled because of assumptions. So put all your assumptions on the table. Are we talking about $1? Are we talking about 75 cents? It makes a difference. So get those assumptions on the table. How do you incentivize people, James?
Let me say, don't be surprised if you ask those questions and your owner doesn't know. Then it's about helping them document those things. So that project I was talking about, it got funded based on, what do you think a renovation in this area would cost? A square footage number was put together, cost per square foot. We threw out a number and it got approved. Now we're changing that to a two-step process of scoping and a full funding. But I realized there wasn't a clear scope from the owner point of view, because the client asked me, hey, am I going to get this equipment replaced within that project, or should I go and ask for it next year? And I said, well, I don't know. Don't we have an agreed upon scope for what's in the project that's already funded? And the answer was, no, we don't. We kind of get funded and then we develop the scope. So do it the other way around and you'll be better off. How do you incentivize people to be transparent? Well, you know my bias now. So it's obviously way easier if the owner uses an integrated form of agreement where costs are transparent and profit is at risk, and there is a shared ownership of the project budget. That there is no other way to get that reliably and consistently without doing that, in my opinion.
Yeah,
now,
skin in the game. I agree. Like we see teams, and we've had some teams, James, just to contrast that. We had a client, architect and GC team. They decided that they did not want to go back and do it the old way, the traditional design bid build. And so even without an IFOA, an integrated form of agreement, like James is saying, they just agreed. They had a handshake agreement to act and use target value delivery, and they did. And they had significant savings for the client returned to them. And so you can do it. Sometimes the incentive, how you do it, is just ask. You can just say, like, I've had this great experience, or I watched this amazing live stream with James Pease, and I just want to do this. And so you can just try it. You can try little parts and pieces that make sense. And if you want the full framework of like how to get the whole thing, then check out, I'm going to shamelessly plug right now because it's just a good time. Let me get that out of the way. If you're going to be in New Orleans, Amber, if you want to come over to United States and beautiful New Orleans on March 11th, 2022, we're going to be with Tom Weathers and Jeremy and friends at presenting a deep dive on how to do target value delivery, and possibly even if I can bribe James to get there with a walk on Bourbon Street potentially, or wherever Tom says we should go and hang out. We'll be there live in vivo March 11th. So I'll put a link to that in the chat in just a second, but let's go back and think about all those resources that are there for you. So that's another way. We got another question here. What's the investment up front? How do we convince people to do it, James?
So my experience over a lot of projects was 1 to 2.5% of expected project budget. You could invest that and put a validation study together. The Lean Construction Institute has a guide on validation studies. It's not that much money. I mean, out of a whole program. So what I would say is when you finish that and you document it, you're like, a lot of schematic design is done, at least the big cost drivers in schematic design. And you've gone to design development level, even though when I said there's not real definitions of these, you've developed some of the things farther because you need them for cost certainty, but you haven't finished schematic design and you haven't done a lot in design development that you would usually do. So I would say when I talk to people, it's like we can spend 2% of the project budget. We can get the full design and construction team on board, not the finished trades, but MEP, framing and drywall. Those are the big ones that you're going to have on the job. Your general contractor, your full design team, and you can over the series of a couple of months document all the major decisions that drive cost certainty on a project and document that. And now, how do you convince owners? Well, that's what we're here trying to do today. Share this, share resources. I think the only thing we can do is educate owners. I've realized recently that most owners, here's another analogy. We think that we're buying a car, right? That's what we think when we're buying a building. We're out car shopping. But we're not. We're actually more in the role of Toyota, where we're designing and building our own car. And we're trying to facilitate all of that. UCSF has 150 people in its real estate department to manage design and construction. I'll tell you, UCSF doesn't really want to be a real estate developer. We're a research institution, we're a graduate school, and we're a healthcare provider with a pretty large real estate development arm because we cannot buy completed products from the industry. We cannot compare two buildings and the cost and the schedule and, buy it now. And there's a question about prefab and modularization. Yeah, I think we're going that way because owners don't want to be in design and construction. They, like Felipe said, it's just a necessary evil to get to the point where the building is done and we can do something with it. And so anything that gets us closer to more quickly knowing what we're going to get, how much it's going to cost, when we're going to get it, and we can make that decision and get it reliably, anything that gets us closer to that is, in my mind, is happening in the future. And anything that makes it more complicated and less collaborative is probably not going to continue to grow.
It's pushing it further away. And I just want to give a shout out to Dwan helping us out with answering questions here. Price certainty. It's like James says, they want to be able to buy it. Thank you, Dwan. And we've got some more appreciation here. If a new hospital takes 3 to 6 years from design to delivery, and you plan one using product A, but then as things go on and it gets at a premium cost, at what point in the design process do you shut things down?
Well, in healthcare, we never shut it down. We design all the way through to the end, which is another reason that integrated project delivery is a good model for healthcare, where you're constantly making changes because it's open book and it's collaborative. I think it's harder in a design build or a definitely in design bid build, right? Where you've got a good upfront price for exactly what's in the drawings, but the second you want something else, it's a whole different conversation. So hospitals, imaging equipment comes out every 18 months. And if it takes 6 years to deliver a project in California, we have to design to the exact model number of the imaging equipment that we're installing, not just the type, but the vendor and the model number. And so I joke, I don't know what I'm going to install in this hospital. The only thing I know for sure is I'm not putting what I've designed in it. Like, the one thing I know for sure is I'm not putting that piece of equipment. I'm putting something else other than that, and I'm going to change it later because I have to. We're doing brain surgery in these facilities. We're doing organ transplants, and we want to have the newest technology that's available, which means in a new building means we're going to make a change near the end of the job. I liken change in IPD to like robbing a train. Like, you can't stop the train. You need to ride up alongside of it while the train's moving. It's an analogy that a friend of mine came up with. You need to ride up alongside of the train while it's moving, jump on board, make your changes, and jump off without slowing the train down. That's how you try to implement change. And in IPD, with a collaborative team that's aligned on final cost, the owner is not pushing the job, trying to make it happen. It has its own inertia. It's moving. The team is incentivized to get it done. So the owner is not trying to keep the job moving as much like they are in design, bid, build, where like the owner has to try to make sure people answer questions and the job is moving. The job's going to move. So I spend most of my time in IPD figuring out how to integrate change into the job. Now we have separate forms and things to make sure that funding changes come with additional funding, that we can't just absorb change with no impact to the project. So the thing is, what is the change? How complicated? What does it mean to the team? And then we get real clear with the leadership. Do you want to make this change or not? And we'll tell them, does it move the end date of the job or not? Does it affect the overall budget of the job or not? And then it's about making informed decisions, not about, people say just the owner should never change. It's like, well, then don't work in healthcare.
Yeah, construction, because change is guaranteed everywhere. So I want to respect James's time. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day, James. Thank you, Adam, for being on and giving us some flavor here. People, ladies and gentlemen, in the comments, I will keep in the comments today for a little bit while longer and try to answer all your questions. And I'll tag James in and he'll get back to you when he can, as you, Adam, as well, if you see something in the thread afterwards. But we'd love that you all spend time with us. Thank you so much. Adam and James, go ahead and say goodbye to the good people.
Adios. Thank you, James. Appreciate the knowledge.
Well, thanks for spending your Monday with us. Really appreciate it. You can find me at leanipd.com or probably on LinkedIn. Best way to catch me. My contact info is there. And I'm happy to share, and have a great day. Go get them, 2022.
Yeah, keep the questions coming because we're going to keep answering them. Very special thanks to my guest. I'm Felipe Engineer Manriquez. The EBFC show is created by Felipe and produced by a passion to build easier and better. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, everybody.